In this lesson, we're going to have a look at simplifying exponential expressions again, but this time with addition and subtraction. If you have a look at our first example, you will see that in this case we now have two terms in the numerator as well as in the denominator, separated by the minus and the plus. This means we cannot follow our normal steps and starting by changing the base numbers into prime numbers, because we first have to make a plan to make the numerator and denominator one term. And this we'll do by factorizing, because factorization forms brackets and a bracket makes one term. So now, of course, there are many different types of factorization, the most common one being common factor. Then we also need to realize that you can use your exponential laws backwards. So usually we will have our first law and we will add the exponents if the bases are the same, but now we are going to use this backwards. So we are going to start off by rewriting the first term as 2 to the power of x multiplied by 2 to the power of 2, and we're going to do that with every single term. So it's going to become minus 2 to the power of x times 2 to the power of 3, and in the denominator we'll have 2 to the power of x times 2 to the power of 1 plus 2 to the power of x times 2 to the power of 2. And now we are going to focus only on the numerator, where we have two terms separated by a minus. And now, if we have a look at those two terms, you can see that there's a common factor of 2 to the power of x, and we need to figure out what is left in each term. So if you struggle, you can rewrite it separately. So I'm going to take my first block, or my first term, which is 2 to the power of x times 2 to the power of 2, and divide it by the common factor. Now, anything divided by itself is 1, so we are left with 2 to the power of 2. I'm going to repeat that with the second term, or the second yellow block, which is minus 2 to the power of x times 2 to the power of 3. Divide that by the common factor as well. Anything divided by itself, once again, is 1, and I'm left with minus 2 to the power of 3. If I now have a look at my denominator, I will see that in my denominator I also have two terms separated by the plus, and in those two terms, once again, my common factor is 2 to the power of x. I'm left with 2 to the power of 1 in my first term, and plus 2 to the power of 2 in my second term. Now I have one term at the top and bottom, so I'm allowed to simplify by saying anything divided by itself is 1. So I'm left with 2 to the power of 2 minus 2 to the power of 3 divided by 2 to the power of 1 plus 2 to the power of 2, and I just need to simplify. That will give me 4 minus 8 divided by 2 plus 4. That in turn will give me minus 4 divided by 6, which is minus 2/3. When we're simplifying exponential expressions and we have addition and subtraction, your first step would be to rewrite using your first exponential law backwards, then you'll factorize, and then you will simplify. Even though common factor is the type of factorization that we see most often in these types of questions, there are many other options. So let's have a look at an example where we need to factorize by doing difference between squares. So if you have a look at our example 2, you will see that we once again have more than one term in the numerator and denominator, so we need to make a plan to factorize. So you need to realize that 3 to the power of 2x is the same as 3 to the power of 2 times x, which can also be written as 3 to the power of x times 2 minus 1, and in the denominator I have 3 to the power of x plus 1. Now I'm going to use the K method. The K method sometimes helps you to see the type of factorization you need to do easier. So in this case, because I see 3 to the power of x everywhere, I'm going to say let 3 to the power of x be k. This means I'm going to now change those 3 to the power of x's to the letter k, and I will have k to the power of 2 minus 1 over k plus 1. And now it's easy to see that in my numerator I have difference between squares. So I'm going to factorize that into k plus 1 and k minus 1. Now I can simplify by saying k plus 1 divided by k plus 1 is 1, and I'm left with k minus 1. Now I need to remember that I said that k is 3 to the power of x, and now I need to rewrite that. I need to substitute back. Instead of saying k minus 1, it will now be 3 to the power of x minus 1 as my final answer.